Some say it's the journey that matters more than the destination. But at KittyHawk, we feel that the world is headed to a future of sustainable abundance, one that benefits all citizens of this planet, and that getting there faster matters. So we seek to accelerate this journey alongside the mission-driven entrepreneurs who relentlessly work to bring this abundant future into the present. This is what drives us forward and what motivates us every day at KittyHawk. We see a horizon of golden possibilities ablaze with technologies that improve lives and protect our planet, securing a better tomorrow for us all. So while we agree on the merits of a joyous and mindful journey, we also feel that when it comes to creating a future laden with the best characteristics of humanity, getting there as quickly as possible matters. KittyHawk, take flight. Our guest today is Dr. Peter Diamandis. Peter has a long and storied history at the center of incredible technological innovation. He's been an entrepreneur many times, having founded XPRIZE, International Space University, Singularity University, Cellularity, and more. He's an accomplished author, having written the New York Times bestsellers Abundance, The Future is Better Than You Think, and Bold, How to Go Big, Create Wealth, and Impact the World. Peter is an extraordinary human and someone who is constantly pushing himself and those around him to think bigger and to have a greater impact. Whether that's working with Elon Musk to launch a $100 million carbon capture XPRIZE, which they did last year, or helping guide his Abundance 360 members to craft their massively transformative purposes. Peter is constantly pushing us to reimagine ourselves and what we're capable of, and to work towards creating a more abundant and just world for all. Peter has been a great friend and supporter of my work at Singularity and now at KittyHawk, and it's with great gratitude and much respect and love that I welcome him here today. Peter Diamandis, it is such a great pleasure to have you here, my friend. One of my absolute favorite people, and I have to say I'm super excited and really looking forward to having an hour here to you, almost to myself, to be able to pick your brain and chat about this really extraordinary time that we're living in. So first of all,
it's exciting and well, a pleasure to be here. And it's first of all, I love spending time with you. And secondly, it's rare you get a chance to sort of like kick back without an agenda and just have a fun conversation, which is what I'm looking forward to here.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it. We've got a great group of investors and advisors and friends at KittyHawk who are here and listening.
People are going to be listening to this.
I think we'll have somewhere around 60 to 70 folks or so. And then we'll put it out on the, on the interwebs and on YouTube for other folks to be able to connect afterwards.
Great.
I thought we'd kind of focus today on kind of two main areas, areas that I know you were, in the thick of and where there's tremendous innovation that's taking place. And those are artificial intelligence and longevity. So I thought we'd start with AI. Obviously, really in the zeitgeist right now, and every day seems to be there's some sort of new major development. So I thought we might just kind of start off level set, like, what are you seeing? Where are we? What are you excited about? I mean, it's crazy the speed of things are changing. I was thinking, in the lead up to this, like, you have your 6Ds, and we're really at that inflection point right now where it's gone, we're exiting kind of the deceptive phase, and it's really blowing people away. But you've been talking about it. We've been talking about it at Singularity, for a long time now. So it's interesting that I think, I'll speak for myself, but I'm surprised and have been blown away by what's been happening and really shouldn't have been.
Yeah, it is a crazy time, extraordinary time. It's one of my arguments for we're living this simulation is this is the most exciting time ever to be alive, right? It's like 99th level of the gameplay. And, as an investor, I think about, the only two places I would be putting any capital right now is AI and biotech. The two are exploding onto the scene. As you well know, Will, I spent most of my early years in the space arena, and space was very slow and massively capital intensive, and it was fraught with a lot of risk. And it's gotten better, and we've seen a lot of progress there. But now, as I look at what entrepreneurs are doing, it's a Cambrian explosion in both AI and biotech. And so that's where I'm putting most of my capital and most of my time in the companies I'm starting. So the AI world is fascinating. First of all, let me back up and give some context here. So why now? Why are we seeing AI explode onto the scene? And it is, right? If you look at any of your feeds, news feeds, and I don't watch the news. I don't care at all what CNN or Fox or any of those news outlets are saying to me. I do read selective news in the tech space and, over Twitter and so forth. And it's just, you can feel the speed increasing
Right.
substantially. Um, and and so when you ask the question, why now? Because the first conversation on AI occurred at Dartmouth University in 1956, right? So we're talking 60 years ago. And then the first deep learning models came online, or at least were conceived of, in the mid 60s. And so why now? Well, there's four primary reasons of why this is happening. The first is, of course, computation. We have, over the last 5 years, finally reached a threshold of the amount of compute available, principally on GPUs and large cloud systems, whether they're at Tesla or at Microsoft or at Google, wherever they might be. That's enough compute to throw at these deep neural nets and have them actually be useful in a very fast way. So compute is growing. Moore's law, the amount of computing per dollar is doubling every 18 to 24 months, and it's continuing unabated. I've seen some predictions that show, next 3, 4, 5 years, we're going to see that continuation. And then we'll see some new form of computation coming on.
Right.
Maybe it's going to be quantum computers doing that. The second reason is the amount of labeled data in the world. So every time you plug something into Twitter or Facebook or your corporate website, that information as labeled data is, again, doubling every 2 years. And there's a new term called a yottabyte that we're going to run into soon as a new level of amount of data out there. And that labeled data is what all these large language models are crawling. And because it's labeled, because it's organized, they can start to understand it. And in effect, people need to realize this. These AI models can come from any place. They are coming from us. They're a progeny of what we have been putting out into the world over the last 40 plus years. The third reason that it's moving so fast right now is the algorithms. The speed and efficiency of the deep learning algorithms has, I think the number was 99.5% increase in efficiency over the last 5 years. And the fourth reason, of course, is capital. Everybody's throwing more and more money at this. I'm on occasionally on college campuses talking to students and recruiting. And I know I just have a summer intern, sort of a junior strike force member with me out of USC and now Cornell master's degree. And he's working on 3 AI startups. The cost of starting an AI company, call it, it's a company of one with an algorithm, if you would, that you can
Right.
launch and do something useful, has dropped to near zero. It's your evening time. You can look at one of the interesting elements is looking back over time. How much money did it cost to start a company over history, right? And it was, 20 years ago, it was expensive with buying your computers and buying your software and buying the network capacity and all of that. And you could spend millions of dollars to get a company going. Then it dropped to hundreds of thousands, and it started to 10,000s. Now it's effectively free. So the number of people starting companies, I don't know. I mean, are there 100,000 new startups in the AI world? Maybe. And
Yeah,
it's
never see.
accelerating.
It reminds me a little bit of kind of the early dot-com era, and
It does.
especially with everyone adding .com to the end of their
Yeah,
business. I see.
dogfood.com. Yes,
Yeah, it's
pets.com.
unbelievable. I
Yeah.
see so much inbound now where everything seems to be focused on AI. I'm really curious as to your opinion. Like how do you think about investing into this arena? Right, there's so many companies that are being started now. Very few of them are probably going to be venture appropriate investments. Lots of, great time to be an entrepreneur, not necessarily, it's a unsure time to be a venture investor, I think, and thinking about how you put money to work into AI in particular, when things are changing so rapidly, when there's so much capital that's flowing into that space. So I'm curious to, as an angel and as a VC and someone who, is around incredible entrepreneurs all the time, like how are you kind of slicing and dicing, your opportunities?
That's a great question, and I've had this conversation with some of the largest AI venture capitalists out there who are deploying billions, and it's tough. There was an article, a memo leaked out of Google the other day. I'm sure you saw it. That
Yeah.
basically said Google and Microsoft and all the large players, the mainstream players, have no defensible moat around them, and open AI the same. They're not open, but open AI as
Yeah.
well. And it's the open source movement that is much more. I just recently put some capital into one company, which is Stability AI. You met
Yeah.
Emad Mustak,
Yeah.
right? And because I do think that the open source networks will win over the closed networks right now. And I think in fact, my next blog that I'm putting out is a blog talking about open versus closed. And I think it's, I don't know how to describe it. It really is a Cambrian explosion of evolution here. And so the question becomes, what unique data do you have? So we have to look at AI as two things: an AI, large language model or generative AI system that is able to generate things based on what's out there. And then the question is, do you as a company have proprietary data that no one else has, that a particular set of AI algorithms can come to conclusions on top of? If you do, then that's a key differentiator, right? So one of my companies, Fountain Life, is got a massive data lake of healthy data, longitudinal healthy data. So our members go through a full body MRI, a coronary CT, a DEXA scan, genomics, all the blood, 80 biomarkers and so forth, every year on year on year. And we have, unlike the healthcare industry that has a lot of sick care data, we have healthcare data, right? We can look at how we're improving the health of individuals who are not burdened by disease. And so that's a unique data set, and we'll build an AI set of capacity around that. So I'm looking at when a company's bringing something to me, what's the data that they're operating on top of, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yep. Totally makes sense. Are there any, companies or areas that you've seen, recently that you're particularly excited about, or you think kind of represent brave new frontiers in kind of innovation and entrepreneurship, or new business categories that are springing up?
Well, I think you have to look at what is ripe for complete disruption
Right.
and then making bets in that area.
Right.
So for me, it's AI and education are both ripe for complete and utter decimation. I'll
Right.
use that term. So reinventing healthcare.
Can I ask you on the
Yeah,
education front, does that mean bypassing the existing education systems and just
yes,
going direct?
right.
Okay, because that's really the only way it seems right now, at least within the US, to really drive change.
Yeah, just like we bypassed the libraries and Google
Yep.
permission, did not ask permission to launch something that would make libraries obsolete.
Right. Right.
Um, and I have a blog I wrote, I haven't launched yet, which is our K through 12 schools, and mostly our high schools, are failing our students. Right, I have two 11-year-old fraternal twin boys, and as I think about this, they're not being prepared by the school for what's coming. And it's not like they should become coders. I'm not saying that. I'm
Right.
saying that the skills they need to be uh, in the coming world are different than the skills that they're being taught.
Right.
Listen, I understand why geometry is important, and I understand why, simplifying equations are important, and the basics in math and the basics in writing and so forth. But then there comes a point where there are fundamental things like um, schools helping kids find their passion and purpose, learning how to ask great questions, how to debate,
Right.
how to make your point, how to lead, right?
I love to that point. I mean, what Saul Khan is doing at Khan Academy, I have to say, like, well, we're always learning, but I wish I had more time, because now with things like he had his, I think, an AI debate coach, and
Yeah,
this, we're entering this phase now where you will be able to have these incredible conversations with a computer, to be able to really dive deep to make sure you really truly understand something, right? And to just have these layered conversations that help me learn how the best way that I can learn, help others learn, according to their particular inclination. It's so exciting.
Exactly. So we've all heard of Auto GPT recently, right? So first comes GPT-3, then Chat GPT, then GPT-4, and Auto GPT. And Auto GPT is still in its early phase, but it's the notion that there is a system that can call on other systems or take a complex problem and parse it up and write, if in the parlance of Chat GPT, write the prompts and give it to a subsystem to work on that, and then work other subsystems and pull it all together to give you a complicated answer. So we're going to be seeing that occur in the education space as well. We're all going to have some version of Jarvis. I keep on coming back to Jarvis from Iron Man because damn it, I want one.
Yeah, yeah,
And
me
it's going
too.
to be your AI that you communicate to in normal in natural language like we can today, and it's going to be verbal interfaces that are with you all the time, everywhere. Right? You're going to give this version of Jarvis permission to listen to our conversations, read my emails,
Right,
through my AR glasses, watch what I'm eating. Um, and because when you give it that permission, it's there to help you optimize whatever you want. Like if you say, I want to lose weight, I want to work out, it's going to, you say put it on prompt mode. It's going to say, don't eat that. Take the stairs rather than the elevator. It's going to be
right.
coaching you along the way. But I think the most interesting thing is going to be in the educational space where you'll be able to, say, I need to understand this subject and have it deliver an education to you. We don't all learn the same way. Some of us learn by reading, some of us learn by listening on Audible, some of us learn by doing, by watching. And imagine an AI that knows how you learn best. In fact, it knows your facial features. So if it sees you going like, your facial expression that I didn't get that, it
Right.
will teach it to you again in a different way. So, the biggest challenge is as humans, we have a limited IO capacity right now, input output capacity, until we bypass our ears, senses, eyes, and so forth, and go to direct brain computer interface, which we will do. But until that time, we have a limited, I can get my audible speed up to 1.2. I can watch a video twice as fast, perhaps. But when it comes to learning something and absorbing it, it needs to come at a rate that allows me. So we're going to deliver it differently, and we're going to use AIs to select the most important things. One of the biggest concerns I've got, Will, is the deluge of data. If you thought I think the French term is a shitload of information coming our way, it's about to accelerate another tenfold. So how
Right.
do you keep up? How do you possibly keep up with the deluge of news
Yeah,
and
you can only do
information?
it with an AI. Yeah. What do you
And
think the time frame looks like for,
uh,
having this type of capability?
I'm sure it's being, in terms of AI's sorting,
Yeah,
and
AI assistant for you to be able to, interact with, help guide
I'm
you.
sure it's under development in
Yeah.
100, if not 500 different companies right now.
Right.
I mean, it's derivatives of ALEXA. I don't want her to wake up, or my Siri phone, whatever. And by the way, I'm so waiting for Apple to like,
It's
you know,
unbelievable. Yeah. I
reinvent Siri.
think we're all
Like
losing our mind.
I,
The theory is
it's
like
like,
degrading, it feels like.
it's funny. I mean, they're going to
Yeah.
jump from Siri 1.0 to Siri 52.0.
Right. Right.
Um, anyway, the point being that education is going to be transformed. And the other thing that's a ridiculous notion is that you go through high school and then you go through college, maybe through graduate school, and then education is over. And that's ridiculous.
Right.
Education is going to be a lifelong
Right.
experience. I've
Right.
been trying to tell my alma maters, you know, rather than giving me a diploma after 4 years, what I need is a lifelong membership.
Mm.
Yeah,
Right. That's cool. That's a really interesting idea.
they
Let me
haven't been
ask
yet.
you, given this Cambrian explosion that we're in and the profound impact that we all think AI is going to have in the world, uh, how do you think that manifests itself into kind of growth, like global, I don't know, GDP in the coming years? I mean, there's a lot of negativity right now, and we're obviously all sorts of challenges around our debt load here in the U.S. and potential unemployment that could come from AI. How do you think about kind of the benefits and maybe also some of the risks that might come from this?
So I think we are on a constant increasing efficiency curve and therefore increasing GDP curve. We'll come to longevity a little bit later, but out of Harvard, London School of Business, and Oxford was a prediction that adding one healthy year of life to the global population will increase global GDP by $38 trillion for one additional year. The second thing that's going to happen is we're going to enable not just AI, but AI-driven robots, right? There's a whole generation of humanoid robots. We've heard of Optimus. One of my investments is a company called Figure out of the Bay Area. And there's probably 30 humanoid robot companies and another 30 avatar robot companies. So those are going to drive a 24/7 production cycle and increasing GDP. One of the predictions on UBI, I don't know if it was Jeff Bezos who made the comment. I mean, it's a comment that I've heard and thought of myself, which is as robots and AIs take our job, those AIs and robots will eventually be taxed by the government, and that tax base will be delivered as a universal basic income to everybody to allow them to upgrade their lives and educate and start businesses and so forth. Listen, there's a lot of reasons for people to feel off base on their heels, concerned about AI. I don't know what to say. I've been having a lot of conversations of late with individuals on the dystopian nature of AI. I'm more concerned, about not artificial intelligence, but human stupidity using AI, right? So that it's going to be
bad
actors, and the nefarious figures who are going to be using this to do things, and it is starting. And so, what I like to say is when there's a global problem, the world's biggest problem is the world's biggest business opportunities. So there will be opportunities for people to be developing counter measures, viral, antiviral systems. But it's about to get weirder faster than anybody can think.
Yep. I'm sure there's going to be some tough bumps in the road for sure, but I am personally very, very optimistic and think that AI is really going to be an accelerant for humans in so many different ways, and people will find, like we're already seeing with coding and creatives, right? The people who are utilizing these AI tools, it's extraordinary what they're able to produce. So I think
it goes a lot. Yeah, it goes into, like Sam Altman was talking about Helion getting a contract from Microsoft to get commercial power by 2028, which is amazing.
Which is
and we're going to see
fusion company for everyone.
A fusion. So the first commercial fusion company is coming online, and now we're going to see AI helping to optimize fusion, make it faster and better. We're going to see AI helping us in our longevity game. I imagine the majority of progress we're going to see in longevity, health, and age reversal, at least that I'm tracking, is AI for the next 5 years, and then quantum technologies very soon thereafter. And room temperature superconducting and all the things that are technically feasible but have been too hard for our current scientists to do in their heads. Well, we have bigger brains coming to support them.
So why don't we use that as an opportunity to transition into longevity? I feel like I could chat about AI with you forever, but I know a lot of folks, and myself included, are really passionate about longevity. Love to, like we did with AI, maybe talk a little bit about kind of where things stand, what you're seeing, kind of interesting new solutions.
So I'm let's see, my first 20 years of my entrepreneurial life was all space. The last 10, 15 years has been mostly all longevity. And when I think about it, the biggest business opportunity on the planet is going to be adding healthy years. I'm in boardrooms or on stage speaking to people, and I'll ask, how much of your net wealth would you give for an extra 20 healthy years? And without fail, for someone who's being honest, it's, well over 50% of their net wealth. And so if you think about a few things just to tease the conversation, first of all, we were not meant to live past age 30 as humans. 100,000 years ago, you would be in puberty at age 13, then you were pregnant a year later, and then by the time you were 26, 27, 28, you were a grandparent. And that was sort of the human species. And before food was every place, now we have an overabundance of food, and diabetes and is the issue, not malnutrition in most of the world. If you wanted your species to perpetuate, the last thing you wanted to do as a grandparent was steal food from your grandchildren's mouths.
Right.
And so you would die and give your bits back to the environment. And the human lifespan went from late 20s to 30s to early 40s 100 years ago, and it's moved upwards now into the late 70s, sort of hitting 80. And that's good. That was due to antibiotics and better sanitation and a whole slew of other elements. But now we're about to hit a health span revolution that is coming from science. And it's coming from science of understanding why we age and maybe why we don't have to. And this is where I'm starting my companies, where I'm doing most of my investing. Humans can live to 100 years old, and we've all seen, and maybe some of you have grandparents who are centenarians, but it's increasing globally on a pretty steady rate. But it turns out bowhead whales can live 200 years. Greenland sharks can live 500 years. Pretty large organisms in the case of the whale mammals. So why can they live that long and we can't? And I remember thinking that it's either a hardware problem or a software problem, and we're going to have the tools to figure that out. So the hottest subject today is age reversal. We're seeing huge amounts of money going into the field because, if I can give you an extra 20 healthy years, that's worth a lot globally. And, wealth is, health isn't you wealth. So what's going on there? A couple of things. One, Will, as you know, I'm this close to launching we're originally calling an age reversal XPRIZE. We're now calling it the health span XPRIZE, just to make it a little more consumer friendly, a little bit less, hyped. But we're asking teams to basically demonstrate the ability to reverse age-related degradation in muscle, skin, immune, and cognition. So I don't care what your age is or your biological age or your epigenetic, markers are. If you are 20 years, stronger, more immune, better looking, or, youthful looking and better memory, that's the goal.
How many years do they need to?
20 years. You have to reverse it by 20 years.
And what's the size of the prize?
It's a $101 million purse.
101. Okay.
Yeah, it's 101 because we launched a $100 million prize that I got Elon to fund last year or 2 years ago. And the first major sponsor wanted this to be larger. And I said, okay, kick in the extra million. He said, okay, I'll do that. And that's great. Super excited. Looking to launch this prize in October, November. It's going to be a big deal, and we'll attract major players around the world. What else can I tell you?
How about some of the, I think people are obviously always very curious as to what you're doing. I mean, we every year get to go on these incredible platinum longevity learning trips and get to meet with, David Sinclair and George Church and Dean Kamen and all these amazing technologists and entrepreneurs. So you get to see a lot of, really what's happening at the very, very forefront. What do you,
Sure.
How are you changing your regimen? What are the most important things you're doing?
Let me mention first, we do run these super high-end platinum longevity trips. I curate them personally. They're a 5-day, 5-star experience. We do it once in August, mid-August, and once at the end of September. It's 40 people per trip only. And we meet with the top 50 scientists, labs, entrepreneurs in the field.
They're amazing week.
And Will gets a chance to come along and prospect for investments. But if it's something that folks are interested in, you can just let Will know. And
anyone ping me. I'd be happy to connect you up to Peter and his team.
Yeah, we've filled about 2/3 of it, and it will fill very quickly. On the personal side, listen, there are 5 or 6 major things. Let me list them off. The first is diet. We can talk about that. Exercise, sleep, um, meds and supplements, mindset, and then don't die from something stupid is
Mm.
the 6 categories that I have. Going in reverse.
What about
um,
love and community?
yeah, that's
Where
absolutely.
do
It's
you
for me. I put that into the mindset
in the mindset?
arena.
Okay. Yep.
But yes, loving community is definitively critical. One of the ideas is having a future that's bigger than your past, right?
Mm.
On the mindset side, being more excited about what's coming and what you're going to do in the future than looking backwards. It's the most exciting time ever to be alive. So I can't wait to see what's going to happen over the next 100
Mm.
years in space exploration
Yeah.
and all of this. Not dying for something stupid is important. Most of us are optimists about our health, and we have no idea what's really going on inside our bodies. And we've all probably seen or heard of somebody that went to the hospital with a pain in their side, and it's like, I'm sorry to tell you this, you've got stage 4, whatever, or an aneurysm, or died in their sleep and such. And it's because our body is amazing at hiding disease. You don't feel any effects of cancer until stage 3 or 4. It's there in stage 1 and 2. You just not seeing it. Parkinson's, 70% of the substantia nigra neurons have to be dead and gone before you start having tremors. And you don't know unless you look. And people sometimes are afraid to look, and I say, bullshit. When do you want to find out? You're going to find out eventually. And by the way, the earlier you find it, the more you have a chance to do something. Long story short, I built a company with Tony Robbins and Mark Benioff and Bill Kapp called Fountain Life. I'm the executive chairman. Bill's the CEO. And we have 4 centers right now, 2 in Florida, New York, Dallas, and we got 20 that we're going to be opening. And these are 10,000 square foot centers. It's a membership program. You go and we upload you every year, 150 gigabytes of data, full body and brain MRI, coronary CT with an AI clearly overlay, genomics, DEXA scan, 80 biomarkers. It's a lot. And it's to
Braille,
find
right?
Grail as
Liquid
well.
biopsy. Yep.
And our goal is to find anything at the very beginning, to get a baseline on you, and then upload you every year looking for any deviation or any prediction of what might be happening based on your genetics and your blood biomarkers, and then bring it back. And it's amazing. The other half of the company is the therapeutic side. It's like, what are the therapeutics? And this goes into the supplements and meds. Like, for example, I'm on rapamycin right now and metformin. We're going to be seeing the availability of stem cells and exosomes and senolytic medicines and total plasma exchange, and a whole slew of on the edge. In fact, we call our highest level program the Edge program at Fountain, of bringing in the science and the data to extend your life. And here's the goal. Your goal isn't to extend your life 50 or 60 years. It's to give you an extra 10 years that allows you to intercept all the breakthroughs that occurred during that 10 years that give you the next 10 years. It's the longevity escape velocity, as Ray talks about. Sleep is one of my most important attributes. I prioritize sleep, 8 hours of sleep, and there are lots of tricks on how to do that. I use a Manta eye mask. I have my room down to 64 or 63 degrees, a cooling mattress. I have, blue blocking glasses for half an hour before I go to sleep. And I get myself ready for sleep, and I use my Oura Ring to measure it. It gamifies, like, what's my score going to be? If I don't get to sleep by 9:30, I'm not going to hit, a 95 score. Diet, listen, there's no one diet for everybody. The reality is there's a couple of things that everybody needs to know. The first and most important one, and I've had a Twitter fight with Elon about this, is, sugar is a poison. We were never developed to eat as much sugar. Sugar is a neuroinflammatory agent, a cardiac inflammatory agent, and it wreaks havoc in the body. And so I have minimized the amount of sugar in my diet to the maximum extent possible. I eat as much plants as I can, and I am working on gaining muscle mass. So I am working to get 150 grams of protein every day at a minimum.
And are you still intermittent fasting and kind
I
of?
am, the data, I've been digging into that, and I am, having my athletic greens and water in the morning.
Mm.
Um, but it looks like the data for intermittent fasting for humans, unless you've got a disease state, um, doesn't extend life significantly. Um,
It's not really enough, extreme enough kind of
yeah,
calorie restriction
yeah.
or.
I do a Prolon diet twice a year, which is a fasting mimicking diet. And that's really to get my autophagy going, to get my body to start clearing senescent cells. So,
And can you speak to that maybe just for a minute? Because that's turning out to be a really interesting area of kind of
sure,
longevity work.
sure. So it turns out your cells replicate a certain number of times, which is called the Hayflick limit. And at the end of the replications, um, the decency of your cells is to die and go away and make room for other cells that come from stem cells, right? You have stem cells throughout your body, in your fat, in your bone, in your brain, in your muscle, every place that should be replacing and the cells that you lost. But sometimes the cells don't die. Sometimes they become cancers, and that's a problem. And by the way, we should all know we're always developing cancers all the time, continuously. Your immune system, the most amazing organ in the body other than the brain, is constantly finding your natural killer cells, your innate system of finding those cancer cells and zapping them. And it's when your immune system doesn't find them because they put up blocks and they evade where a cancer develops. And so that's why you have to be checking, on an annual basis, on a regular basis. Um, but I'm sorry, I blocked on where I was going with that.
Senescent cells
Senescent
and
cells. Okay,
yeah.
and then so the third thing that the cells can do is become senescent, where they don't die and they just sit there and they pump out inflammatory factors. And so in any organ, something like 2 or 3% of the organ are senescent cells, and these inflammatory factors going out recruit other cells to become inflammatory. They're like bad actors in a crowd. And so there are drugs right now that can identify, target, and kill senescent cells. Dastin, quercetin is one. There's a number of others. There are vaccines being developed to activate your immune system to kill the senescent cells. And then there's epigenetic reprogramming to turn your senescent cells back into normal functioning cells again.
Mm.
So, but I think, again, if you look at the strategies for longevity, there's lots of them. And replenishing your stem cells is one, getting rid of senescent cells is another, and such. So we talked about sleep, diet, basically. Exercise for me is, I have upped my exercise regimen. I'm in the best health I've ever been, right? I'm doing
Mm.
4 weight workouts a week. I just, at Fountain Life, I just went and did a mitochondrial health analysis, looking at lactate in my blood and my VO2 max, and found my zone 2 level, which is at what level do I need to have my heart rate going during exercise, where I am basically stressing out my mitochondria enough to grow and
Mm.
replenish. And
What is that level for you?
for me, it's 111 to 120. And
Okay.
it's a jog, or
Right.
it's a comfortable bike ride. And so I normally, unless I'm doing this, if I'm on a Zoom call, especially a board call, I'm on the bike. 100, I'm trying to get 4 1-hour zone 2 workouts a week. By the way, it's a lot, keeping
Yeah.
yourself in shape. It's a lot. So I try and double and triple up everything I can possibly do.
Can I
Diet,
ask?
exercise, sleep. Yeah, I think we've covered most of the basics.
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to ask you. I know you're very close with David Sinclair, and he's been working on some, extraordinary things that I
Yeah,
think seem to provide a lot of hope for humanity in terms of age reversal. And I think has now moved to doing work on
primates.
mammals and
Yeah,
primates.
yeah.
And I wonder if you have any update there and kind of thoughts on insights around timing.
Sure. So first of all, if you join us in August or September for our Platinum Longevity trip, we will be visiting David's lab, hearing from him, and seeing all his startups. He and George Church will be going to George's lab as well, the two most prodigious uh, scientist entrepreneurs I know. It's awesome. Um, So yeah, the work that was done and published in December of 2020, and then another piece was published in Cell 2 months ago, 3 months ago, 13 years of his work, said, listen, here's the notion. When you're born, you have 3.2 billion letters from your mother and your father. When you're 20, the same DNA is there. When you're 50, when you're 80, when you're 120, the same DNA. Your DNA doesn't change over the course of your entire life. So why do you look different? Why don't you look ripped like you did when you're, 18 or 20 years old? And it turns out, right, it's not your DNA. It's which genes are turned on and which genes are turned off. It's your epigenome. So we have something like 28 collagen genes that when those genes are all on, make soft as a baby's behind, comment is all the collagen genes and molecules that come from that. But as you get older, many of the collagen genes get silenced. They get turned off. They're not being manufactured, and your skin gets wrinkly and older. So what if you could turn them back on? And this is epigenetic reprogramming. Epigenome, epi from the Greek word above, genome, it's like which genes are on or off. If you screw it up, a liver cell is a liver cell because the liver genes are on. If you turn on the neuron genes, it becomes a neuron sitting in your liver. So you don't want to screw that up, but could you move them back to an earlier state of time? And this is the work that David and George and others have been doing with the Yamanaka factors. Happy to go into detail there or not, but the goal is, can we predictably reverse the expression of genetics in your body to express a younger, more youthful version of yourself?
And my understanding from him is that he thinks, we're probably 10 to 15 years from having this kind of productized and available. Yeah, fingers crossed. Exactly. With lots of other things that will be available to help us as well in the meantime, and probably being able to hit longevity, escape velocity. I may be curious as to what you think the timing looks like, but I've heard kind of.
Yeah. So I query the people. Listen,
Yeah.
I'm biased, right? I'm querying the more optimistic individuals, so I've
Yep.
got selection bias through the
Right.
roof on this, right? So Ray Kurzweil's prediction for reaching longevity, escape velocity is 10 to 12 years from now. George Church, who I thought would be more conservative, said it was like 15 years from now. So that was an interesting coincidence, and David was even more optimistic. So we'll see. The goal for everybody here is don't die from something stupid in the interim.
Right.
Go upload yourself. You can go to fountainlife.com. And if you send an email to vip@fountainlife.com, you'll bypass everybody and go straight in.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So Peter, I want to save a little time. I've already been
Please.
pretty selfish here with our time together, but open it up for the folks who are listening and see if we've got some questions in the audience.
Happily.
Here we've got some smart people with good insight. Maybe we'll start off with Alex, who Gunaras, who I know has a question. One of the CEOs of one of our portfolio companies.
Hello, Alex.
There we go.
All right.
Well, hi, Peter. Thank you very much for the absolutely fascinating discussion. So
Pleasure.
I'd love to hear more about the intersection of AI and the medical research and longevity.
Sure.
One of the things I've been seeing as an engineer, software engineer, is just the crazy productivity gains from using AI tools and just my day-to-day work. I'm seeing up to 10x. It's just phenomenal. But I'm not spending my time in a longevity lab. I'm really curious, are the AI tools helping folks on the longevity research side?
They are.
In their day-to-day work? Is it accelerating? And what are some specific examples for coding? I know it's how much code can you write? How fast? What does it look like?
I'll split the world into two parts. One part of it, Alex, is the use of AI in the kind of work that we're doing at Fountain Life, right? So it's a massive amount of data, 150 gigabytes of data we're collecting about you, and trying to contextualize that data for you and determine, based upon your genetics and all your blood biomarkers, what supplements, what meds are best for you not for the general population, right? So AI is going to play a world in that. We're using AI to look at all the imagery data. Eventually all MRI, CTs, X-rays, all radiological reads will be done by AIs instantly, right? And with far higher accuracy. It's not a matter of if, it's only a matter of when, and that when is the next few years ahead of us. And so that's great because it brings down the cost. We're going to see AIs becoming the co-pilot for a physician. It's going to become malpractice soon enough to diagnose a patient without AI in the loop, right? I mean,
I
get
love
this.
your tweet on that, by the way. That was great.
Thank you. There's 7,000 medically related journal articles published per day. I mean, how many has your doctor read, right? Is the question you have to ask yourself. Right. I need to tweet that one later. Okay. Anyway, the reality is AI is going to become our diagnostician. And then as soon as humanoid robots become a little more advanced, AI will become our surgeons through the robots, right? There'll be a time in the future where you see that, the surgeon walking down the hallway towards you to meet you and you go, oh, no, I do not want that human touching me. Get me the robot that has done this a million times, or the robot operating system that can see in infrared and ultraviolet and doesn't jitter, doesn't have a fight with their boyfriend or whatever the case might be. So that's part of it. The other part of the equation is in using AI for the most famous case here is protein folding prediction, right? So proteins make up everything functional in the body, from antibodies to, I won't give you bore you with the list, but being able to predict what a mutation will alter the amino acid sequence and therefore folding of the protein very differently. So drug design is a big area where AI is going to be coming and playing. And then just trying to understand from the massive amount of data, why do these people, make it to 110 while smoking a pack a day while others do not? It's in the data. It just needs to be understood and extracted. Right. So this is where we're going to find new evidence for new genes. Like there was a gene just discovered recently that in centenarians, that gene delivers 10 years of additional heart health. And so we could now take that gene and give it to you. All right. And so
I'll take one.
We're going to start to uncover all of these things. And then one of my dear friends, one of the companies I advise and investor in, Alex Zeverankov, and in Silico Medicine, is basically doing drug discovery and drug development all in silico, right? And so rather than going into the Amazon forest to look for a new drug and then trying to test it, it's all being done there.
Great. Thanks for the question, Alex.
Thanks,
why don't we, let's,
You're welcome,
yeah,
Alex.
great to see you, my friend. Why don't we turn it over right now to Babar Khan, who's joining us from Saudi Arabia, actually. Neom. Babar, how are you?
Hello.
Maybe I'll give him a sec.
Howdy.
And why don't I'll ask the question. In the space of investing, how does one go about parsing the plethora of companies being...
I hear him.
Are you there?
I am. Thank you, Will, and thanks for that, Peter.
Pleasure.
If it's better if you say the question, I'm in a busy airport, but listening in, very excited.
Okay, great. Let's see. In the space of investing, how does one go about parsing the plethora of companies being formed for winners? You mentioned data lakes. Is that the primary factor? And the AI ML toolkit will be commoditized?
Listen, we're going to see a lot of commoditization. And if I told you I knew how to parse the companies, I'd be lying. I don't. And so the question is, I think companies that have real business models and are generating real revenue. Bill Gross, the CEO of Idealab, gave a great TED talk years ago and a DLD talk about what was the single attribute that enabled successful companies to succeed. And it wasn't the CEO, it wasn't the tech they were using, it wasn't the amount of money they had. It was when the company was born, and specifically, did the company last long enough to intersect a unique event that empowered it? So Zoom was around for many, many years before COVID. It was COVID that launched it into a massive success, right? It was the space shuttle accident that launched SpaceX into a massive success. It was the 2008 recession that launched Airbnb and Uber. So does the company, I'm really focused on companies that have revenue right now and have a real product market fit, are generating revenue and can live long enough to live forever and find that right product market fit. And then being available to put, investing broadly and then putting more and more capital into the companies that are succeeding over time, which is, a tried and true approach.
Peter, I've got a question for you. Like, given the pace of change, and especially on the kind of drug discovery side of things, or the med tech side of things, where you right now the gating factor is really a regulatory body to approve these things. How do the government agencies, keep up? How do we accelerate them so that there isn't just such a huge roadblock here to bringing these things to market and helping people?
Yeah, it's a problem. It's true for all the regulatory agencies, but to use the FDA as an example, who cares deeply, right? There's nobody, the FDA is doing anything on purpose, but they value a life lost because a drug is approved that injures somebody far more than all the lives lost where no drugs are available. And one of the ideas I've had for years, and if I had an extra 24 hours in a day, I would run at this with like a man whose hair is on fire seeks water, is a approved experimentation protocol. So in finance, we have Regulation D offerings and we have IPOs. And in a Regulation D offering, if you're an accredited investor, you can invest in a company that's very risky. You have to have $250,000 of income per year, a net worth above $1 million. But if you're a public company where a grandmother or a kid can invest, you need to have gone through all the legal reviews and approvals and so forth. So imagine if there was an accredited patient where somebody says, listen, I've got a drug, it's working in animals, I think it's going to work in humans, and anybody wants to try it, come, here's the data. And someone says, I have, it's terminal disease, I have no options, I'm dead in 6 months, I want to try it. And they get the approval of their next of kin, husband, wife, kids, doctor, whatever, and create a means by which the experimentation can be done.
Right.
So for me, I think that's the right way to go. And then we're going to see geographic arbitrage where people are going to other countries.
Yeah, which we're already seeing, right? Yeah. Awesome. Rob Kramer, you're next. Welcome, my friend.
Yes, thank you, Will. Thank you, Peter. This has been incredibly compelling.
Thank you.
Really. So I guess my question is, do you believe that AI is an intrinsic part of our evolutionary process? And if so, do you believe the physical form of our bodies will dramatically change over the next 100 years?
Yeah, Rob, great question. Yeah, I think it's inevitable that the human species will have given birth to AI. I think maybe I don't think we're alone in the universe. I think that life is ubiquitous, and I think biological life on a planet begins first. And at some point, as it evolves and gets more and more advanced, it gives birth to technologies. You could not have imagined a microcircuit coming together through the goo in primeval Earth, but biological cells did. And so the question becomes, we're giving birth to a new species that will supersede us. And the question is it, this technology versus humankind or with humankind? So I do believe we're going to merge with machines. We're already doing it. These devices here are extended memory and computational capability. There's hundreds of companies working on brain-computer interface right now, 100 billion neurons, 100 trillion synaptic connections, limited in my skull, until I can connect it to the cloud and then increase my capacity. So how will we evolve? We're going from evolution by natural selection, which is Darwinism, to evolution by intelligent direction, assuming that we're somewhat intelligent. So I wrote in my second last book, Future is Faster, a chapter on what I called meta-intelligence, which is a future in which we start connecting our brains to the cloud. Ray Kurzweil predicts this to be in the early 2030s, and he's got like an 86% accuracy rate. I've had the conversations and I've invested in a lot of the BCI companies. So end of the day, I am now connected to the cloud, and Rob, you and Will are connected to the cloud as well. And we're connected to each other, right? So you have to remember that the human being, we are a collection of 40 trillion human cells, individual cells. And we act as unison to be one entity, one consciousness, if you would. In the same way, imagine a future in which, a billion people are connected and becoming conscious on yet another level. Is that what's going to happen? I don't know. Maybe I call it the kinder and gentler Borg. I love Star Trek. My only, disappointment was the Borg was an evil entity, but I'll leave it at that.
Peter, I want to thank you so much for joining us today. Really, always such a pleasure to be with you, to learn from you and connect with you. And thank you for all the great work that you're doing out in the world, my friend.
Thank you. Same to you, Will. A pleasure to call you a friend, and looking forward to seeing you next weekend.
That sounds great. And thanks everyone for joining us today.